told there was an inn there called the King's Great House, and everyone in the Winterlands called its landlord His Majesty King Mick the Fourth, his father and great-grandfather having been, respectively, Kings Mick the Third and Second. He was a small, dark, cheerful man who made the travellers welcome when they reached the place in the sleety darkness of the forenoon, and he asked after John and Muffled and the folk of the hold. Asked, too, if they'd heard whether the king would be sending garrisons back any time soon. "I hear the gnomes have put word out they're buying slaves," he said to Jenny as he guided her and Ian to rooms above the kitchen, the best in the house in weather like this. "And not just among the bandits, as they used to. Word is they let it be known here in the town that any who wish to rid themselves of old folks, or cripples, or the simple-minded, can earn good silver by giving them over to the brother kings. Have you heard this?" "Old folks?" Ian unslung his pack and dropped it on the bed. "Cripples? Why would Lord Ringchin and Lord Ragscar buy those?" His Majesty shook his head. "That I don't know." Outside, the winds that had whipped the travellers for 2 days had risen to a scream, and even through the thick rock walls they could hear the pounding of the waves against the sea wall. But Prowser Gorge, that fishes out beyond the mole, was putting it about last week that the lung fever carried off his crippled sister and that poor daughter of his, that was so fragile and not able to do any work or find a husband. His sons had been more than usually shut-mouthed, and all of them spending gnome silver that they didn't get for their fish. He turned his head as a particularly violent gust shook the building, and he made the trident sign of propitiation against that most capricious of goddesses, yellow-haired Balinor of the sea. "I think you should let Lord John know this." He made as if to go, then turned back. "Not meaning to trouble you, my lady, nor your son, but if you could see your way clear to putting a bit of a word on the storm. There's 3 or 4 of the boats that were out beyond the breakwater when the wind grew bad. A trading vessel was wrecked there a week ago, and I've heard as how in times past you've witched the weather." "There isn't much that can be done," Jenny said gently, "with a storm like this, nor once the storm is upon us. But we'll do what we can." After the man had left, Jenny said, "I haven't the smallest trouble believing old Gorge would sell his sister to the gnomes, or his daughter Anna either." She'd met the disagreeable fisherman on a number of occasions, and had heard stories about him all her life. But who in their right head would buy a cripple for a slave, or a girl who's always ailing and in bed? As she helped Ian lay out a circle of power to slack the winds and try to make a break in the storm, she saw Pellinor again in her mind, crawling toward her in the firelight with his dead demon eye. She had lived cheek by jowl with the grey-haired baron under siege conditions for nearly a month, had fought beside him in battle. She knew absolutely that the man had had no flicker of magic in his blood. So why had the demons taken over his body once life was gone? Because the men in the northern garrisons wouldn't have heard he was dead? Was it only her experience that had let her see the demon light in his eye? After Ian had finished his spells to work the wind, which did slacken a little for an hour or so, Jenny opened the satchels that contained substances she'd thought to put away forever, silver dust and powders compounded of herbs and ash, tiny crystals ensorcelled long ago to hold certain powers, candles of virgin wax. Under her instruction, as he had done nightly since setting forth from Alin, Ian ceremonially cleansed the bigger of their 2 rooms, set limitations at the cardinal points, and traced out circles of power on the foot-smooth plank floor. From her long studies and meditations in her days of small power, before the dragon's magic and the dragon's touch, Jenny knew the disciplines of sourcing power and took her son through them, calling on the name that the moon bore when it was 5 days old, and on the tide as it came in over the breakwater. Assembling, too, the fragmentary magics to be gleaned from trines and quartz of position, a weird that had strength when drawn between running water and oaks on a hill, a sigil that drew power when made equidistant from silver, which could be found in the Tralchet Hills, and cold which her dragon senses had detected years ago under the Snakewater marshes.